Chennai, in the 1950s, a time of heat, hope, and hand-painted posters. Rising above the city's skyline, both literally and metaphorically, was Gemini Studios. A sprawling complex of sound stages, editing rooms, and offices. It was the heart of South Indian cinema. Here, dreams were spun from celluloid, and stars were born under the glare of the arc lights. I, a wide-eyed observer, found myself drawn into this galaxy of creativity and chaos. The studio was a world unto itself, a melting pot of languages, talents, and ambitions. There were directors barking orders, actors rehearsing their lines, and technicians wrestling with equipment. And then there were the poets, the unsung heroes, or perhaps the happily unsung, of this cinematic universe. Amidst the organized chaos of the studio, the makeup department held a special kind of fascination. It was a realm of transformation, where ordinary mortals were sculpted into gods and goddesses, villains and vamps. The tool of this trade, pancake makeup, a thick, creamy concoction that could mask imperfections and create illusions. The application of pancake was an art form in itself. Layers were carefully applied, blended, and powdered, resulting in a flawless, albeit slightly artificial complexion. The air hung heavy with the scent of pancake, coconut oil, and sweat, a potent aroma that spoke of long hours and artistic endeavor. The makeup room was a microcosm of the studio itself, a melting pot of cultures and languages. Makeup artists from different parts of the country, each with their own style and temperament, worked side by side, their chatter a lively mix of Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, and Hindi. Brushes danced across faces, stories were exchanged, and gossip, as always, flowed freely. There was a sense of camaraderie and shared purpose in that room, a feeling of being part of something bigger than oneself. We were all cogs in the great machine of filmmaking, each playing our part to bring stories to life on the silver screen. The poets at Gemini Studios were an interesting bunch. Employed to write song lyrics, they were, for the most part, blissfully out of sync with the frenetic pace of filmmaking. While the rest of the studio buzzed with activity, the poets could be found lounging in the canteen, sipping endless cups of chai, and discussing lofty matters of literature and philosophy. Their contribution to the actual films was, to put it mildly, questionable. Lyrics would arrive late, if at all, and often bore little resemblance to what the director had envisioned. But no one seemed to mind too much. The poets were considered to be harmless eccentrics, adding a touch of intellectual flair to the otherwise mundane studio environment. Section 5. Ode to Idleness, A Poet's Life. One particular poet, a man named Gopal, was a legend in his own lunchtime. He had mastered the art of doing absolutely nothing with an air of profound concentration. He would spend hours staring into space, occasionally scribbling a line or two in his notebook, only to crumple it up in frustration moments later. "The muse is a fickle mistress," he would declare dramatically, when questioned about his lack of productivity. In reality, I suspect, Gopal found the chaotic world of filmmaking a tad overwhelming, and preferred to observe it from a safe distance, preferably with a cup of chai in hand. Section 6. The Bard from Abroad. One day, the studio was thrown into a tizzy by the arrival of an important guest, a renowned English poet. Now, the poets at Gemini Studios were used to being ignored. But the arrival of a literary heavyweight from the West was an event of some significance. The air crackled with anticipation and a good dose of bewilderment. The English poet, a tall, gaunt figure with a perpetually puzzled expression seemed as out of place in the bustling studio as a penguin in a sauna. He spoke in cryptic pronouncements, peppered with literary allusions that flew right over the heads of his audience. Section 7. Spender's Spectacle. The poets of Gemini Studios, used to the more straightforward style of Indian cinema, were utterly baffled. They huddled together, whispering amongst themselves, trying to decipher the Englishman's pronouncements. Gopal, for once, seemed to be paying attention, a look of intense concentration on his face. The English poet, oblivious to the confusion he was causing, launched into a lengthy discourse on the nature of art, the role of the artist in society, and the profound influence of T.S. Eliot on his work. The poets of Gemini Studios, none of whom had read a single word of T.S. Eliot, nodded thoughtfully, pretending to understand. The poet, it turned out, was none other than Stephen Spender, a leading light of the modernist movement. What he made of the whole experience, history does not record. One can only imagine his bemusement at being feted by a group of poets who probably couldn't tell a sonnet from a limerick. Section 8. Celluloid Cold Warriors. The 1950s were a time of great political upheaval. The Cold War was in full swing, and India, newly independent, found itself caught between the capitalist West and the communist East. The film industry, being a powerful medium of mass communication, was not immune to the ideological battles of the day. Gemini Studios, like many other film companies at the time, was staunchly anti-communist. The studio head, a staunch nationalist, believed that communism was a foreign ideology that had no place in India. This anti-communist sentiment was often reflected in the films produced by the studio, much to the chagrin of some of the more left-leaning members of the staff. Section 9. The Red Star Rises over Gemini. The irony of it all, of course, was that the studio's anti-communist stance did not prevent it from occasionally hosting events that could be construed as being sympathetic to the communist cause. One such incident, which I recall with some amusement, involved the invitation of a prominent speaker from the Communist Party of India to deliver a talk on the importance of workers' rights. The studio head, caught between his ideological convictions and his desire to appear open-minded, agreed to the event with great reluctance. The talk, predictably, caused quite a stir. The speaker, a fiery orator, railed against the evils of capitalism and the exploitation of the working class. The studio head squirmed in his seat, while some of the more radical members of the staff cheered in agreement. Section 10. Lights, Camera, Contradictions. Looking back, I am struck by the sheer absurdity of it all. Gemini Studios, a place where dreams were made and fantasies were spun, was also a place where political ideologies clashed and social contradictions played out on a daily basis. It was a microcosm of India itself, a land of contrasts, contradictions, and endless possibilities. And somewhere, amidst the chaos and the creativity, the poets continued to scribble away, their words a poignant counterpoint to the grand narratives unfolding on the silver screen. They were the silent observers, the chroniclers of the human condition, capturing the essence of their time and place with wit, wisdom, and a healthy dose of irony.